Morning, everyone. So I wanted to talk about the ongoing MSTR position. So if you watched my earlier video, I was sort of positioning for upside. Just a reminder, everyone, of the disclaimer. So that anything we talk about today is for educational, entertainment, and information purposes only. But I used my Vega bailout strategy. So that's a strategy you could use when implied volatility is low enough that you feel like if you're completely wrong and you do get this sort of explosive move against you, that Vega is going to bail you out, meaning the implied volatility is going to rise and start to make up for some of the delta direction that you got wrong. And that's kind of exactly what's happened here. So I positioned myself looking for this pullback, thinking, okay, maybe Bitcoin, it could collapse. In the video, I said, look, it could collapse in a true liquidity event, which is what we're getting, right? So in certain kinds of sell-offs where financial plumbing starts to get really, really stressed, we're seeing the VVIX at ridiculously high levels. The VIX is above 50. So there's clearly a lot of stress. The MOVE index, there's rate credit issues brewing. So of course that's going to bleed into the VIX and other kinds of other single names like MSTR. And so this was a stock that I got into around 315, I think it was. So 315, probably right in and about here. So kind of thinking that maybe we're going to get a little bounce. And I want to show you the implied volatility at that time was in and around for that 3-month contract. So I positioned myself in June's, which is kind of, at the time, was kind of between 60-day and 90-day. So we kind of went with the 90-day. So around an 84 implied volatility. So buying 84, which at the time was kind of, probably about a 20th percentile IV percentile, which I like to use over rank, but that I covered that in another video. So IV percentile around 20, that seemed kind of low given what was going on in the world and the fact that MSTR had just had pretty much 150 to 200 points of movement, and yet they kept crushing this vol. So I thought, okay, I'm going to put on the straddle here, the strangle rather. And so what I did was I positioned myself in, let me move this aside. I positioned myself in a June 350 call, 5 of these June 350 calls, and 5 of the 210 puts. Now, what that did at the time is it positioned me delta long. So I was favoring that upside because the delta is going to reflect that, right? Which way are you leaning? If you're delta neutral, then you're more or less kind of neutral on your strangle. If you're delta long, you're favoring the upside. If you're delta short, you're favoring the downside. So sometimes people put these on and they simply put them on because they think implied volatility is low and they're not going to pick a direction, but they feel that something is going to happen and it starts to drive implied volatility up. And so regardless of whether the stock even moves at all, you're going to get that bump up in vol. So what's happened is we've run down about, what is that, $80. And I've actually made money on this. So I leaned long. I was playing the upside. I was kind of thinking, okay, maybe we get to 370, 380, and we have some nice upside potential here because I thought the vol would probably expand to the upside as well. That's kind of a nice situation where I felt it could expand to the upside and I felt it could expand to the downside if everything started to collapse. And so things collapsed, was wrong on delta, but what I had, which was really great, was a lot of Vega exposure. So can see now that down around 235, I'm up $2,800 on this position that I put on up here around 315 was dead wrong on direction. And you can see how we're riding down the sort of, think of this as delta, right? You're long delta up here, you're giving up delta, giving up delta. Now you're starting to gain delta again from this lower put starting to kick in. So that lower put is kind of like your protective soldier down there in case things start to go the other way. And it starts to pick up potentially some of that downside skew, which we've been seeing lately on MSTR, is we're getting a little bit more downside skew as opposed to upside. Usually that skew lives in the upside calls, but lately we've seen it live a little bit more in the downside puts. And so we're getting that kick up a little bit. implied volatility is rising in general, which is just kind of think of that as the structure, the whole structure of volatility is moving up. So let's look at what happened to get in around an 84 implied volatility, and right now we're at 100, 101, about 100. So we've gone from the 20th percentile effectively to somewhere closer to a 90th percentile, 87th percentile. So now the difficult part is, well, it's a good problem to have, is do I just take my profit, kind of admit I was wrong, and just kind of go, okay, I'm going to take my $2,800 here, and then drive on and look for a better setup, maybe look for implied vol to come in, because now I do have that high Vega risk, right? Vega helped me to the upside because implied volatility expanded, but now it could hurt me if we start to sit around. Now, are we going to sit around at a VIX 52 and a VVIX at 100 and whatever it is, 150? Probably not, 170 actually. So we're seeing very, very serious moves. If Bitcoin continues to break down, it seems to be kind of hanging in there, maybe 75,000, kind of hanging in there. It does have a bit more downside if the liquidity event continues. But at the same time, if the risk here is that I'm essentially delta short at this point. So I've run from delta long to delta short. What I could do is I could pick up an upside call spread to kind of neutralize some of that delta, right? And then when we move up, then that upside call is going to get compressed a little bit, probably if the vol comes in. And then that's going to sort of mitigate me giving some back. But I'm going to watch it today. I'm going to lean towards maybe trimming the position, maybe even doing something different, maybe selling a downside put, given that the skew is so high. We turn some of this into a ratio put spread, right? Where I can kind of create like a tent of benefit. So let's say I go in and I say, okay, I could even do this in a near month. Go May, which of course has exploded around 120 volatility. I could go in and sell a 185 for about 1390. Which is basically what I paid for this put in June. So I could sell the 180, which is $30 further out for about the same price. I could sell two of them. So what I would do is I'd sell, let's say I go two of the 185s, which means 10 in my case, because I'm long 5 of the 210 puts. So I'm going to turn this, I'm going to forget about this call up here for now. I'm going to turn this into a long 5, short 10, kind of a calendar, right? So almost like a diagonal. And this is kind of what it starts to look like, right? So now if things do calm down, we'll probably see the front part of this volatility curve get compressed. These are going to get crushed a little bit. And I'm going to maybe create a little bit of a tent of benefit here as those Mays get crushed. And then when we get closer, if I end up being able to cover these, at some point for a lower price, then maybe I can maintain the original structure. But the original structure definitely has some Vega risk at this point. This is also gonna neutralize not neutralize my delta, but it's gonna get me a little bit delta long. So the risk here is that below 185, I'm going to be long 500 shares of MSTR. Right? So because I'm long 5, I'm short 10 of these. So I'm basically playing the skew. I'm looking for a reversion down in volatility and skew in May. But the risk remains that I could end up owning this thing at an effective price of around 160, which isn't bad because that's basically, that takes us back to sort of before all this stuff started exploding. So a couple different ways we can play this. I can turn it into, maybe a butterfly or something like that. But so far, so good. I'll have to take a look today. Today's going to be interesting. So we'll see you guys in the next video.